Let's take a look at organizational culture. Organizational culture refers to a system of shared meaning that distinguishes the organization. The system of shared meaning includes values, beliefs, and assumptions that characterize the organization. Six primary characteristics seem to capture the essence of an organization's culture. Adaptability, the degree to which employees are encouraged to be innovative and flexible, as well as to take risks and to experiment. Detail orientation, the degree to which employees are expected to exhibit precision, analysis, and attention to detail. Results and outcome orientation, the degree to which management focuses on results or outcomes rather than on the techniques and processes used to achieve them. People and customer orientation, the degree to which management decisions consider the effect of outcomes on people within and outside the organization. Collaboration and team orientation, the degree to which work activities are organized around teams rather than individuals. Integrity, the degree to which people exhibit integrity and high ethical standards in their work. Each of these characteristics exists on a continuum from low to high. Appraising an organization on the strength of each provides the basis for shared understanding of members. If you've ever been in an organization, you probably noticed a pervasive culture among members. Organizational culture describes how employees perceive the characteristics of an organization. In other words, it's a descriptive term. Research on organizational culture has sought to measure how employees see their organization. Does it encourage teamwork, reward innovation, or stifle initiative? In contrast, job satisfaction seeks to measure how employees feel about the organization's expectations, rewards, and the like. Although the two terms have overlapping characteristics, keep in mind that organizational culture is descriptive in that it describes an organization, much like how personality traits describe employees. On the other hand, job satisfaction is evaluative because it can be positive or negative. Organizational culture represents a perception that the organization's members share. Statements about organizational culture are valid only if individuals with different backgrounds or at different levels in the organization describe the culture in similar terms. The dominant culture expresses the core values that a majority of members share and that give the organization its distinct personality. Subcultures tend to develop in large organizations in response to common problems that a group of members face in the same department or location. Most large organizations have a dominant culture and numerous subcultures. Sometimes the subcultures can be so strong, however, that they subtly reject the official culture. It's possible to differentiate between strong and weak culture. If most employees have the same opinions about the organization's mission and values, the culture is strong. If opinions vary widely, the culture is weak. In a strong culture, the organization's core values are both intensely held and widely shared. The more members who accept the core values and the greater their commitment, the stronger the culture and the greater its influence on member behavior. A strong culture should more directly affect organizational outcomes because it demonstrates high agreement on what the organization represents. Such unanimity of purpose builds cohesiveness, loyalty, meaning, and organizational commitment. Culture defines the rules of the game. Here are some rules. It creates distinction between organizations. It conveys a sense of identity. It facilitates commitment to something larger. It enhances the stability of a social system. It guides employees' attitude and behavior. A strong culture supported by formal rules and regulations ensures that employees will act in a relatively uniform and predictable way. When formal authority and control systems are reduced through decentralization, culture's shared meaning can point everyone in the same direction. Strong leadership that fosters a strong culture by communicating frequently about common goals and priorities may be especially important for organizations. Individual organization fit strongly influences who gets a job offer and a favorable performance review. If you've worked with someone whose positive attitude inspired you to do your best, or if you've worked with a lackluster team that drained your motivation, you've experienced the effects of climate. Organizational climate refers to the shared perceptions members have about their work environment. When everyone has the same general feelings about what's important or how well things are working, the effect of these attitudes will be more than the sum of the individual parts. A positive workplace climate has been linked to higher customer satisfaction and organizational performance. Making sense of their environments, employees draw a distinction between what they hear or see being supported by organizational leaders in meetings, memos, rulebooks, and so on, and what they actually see being enacted. Climate is a function of what employees perceive as being rewarded. Organizational cultures are not neutral in their ethical orientation, even when they're not openly pursuing ethical goals. Ethical culture develops over time as the shared concept of right and wrong behavior in the workplace. Research indicates that ethical cultures espouse clear ethical standards, with ethical behavior modeled by leadership and with employees who are capable of and committed to behaving ethically. Researchers have developed ethical climate theory and the Ethical Climate Index to categorize and measure the shared perceptions of the ethical work environment as reflected on an organization's policies, practices, and procedures. Of the 9 identified ECT climate categories, 5 are most prevalent in organizations: instrumental, caring, independence, law and code, and rules. Each explains the general expectations and values of managers and employees. Organizations often progress through various categories as they move through their business life cycle. Studies of ethical climates and workplace outcomes suggest that some ECT climate categories are likely to be found in certain organizations. Industries with exacting standards, such as engineering, accounting, and law, tend to have rules or law code climates. Industries that thrive on competitiveness, such as financial trading, often have an instrumental climate. The ECI, first introduced in 2010, is one way researchers are seeking to understand the context of ethical drivers in organizations. By measuring the collective levels of normal sensitivity, judgment, motivation, and character of our organizations, we may be able to determine the strength of the influence of our local ethical climates having on us. Eventually, we may be able to provide leaders with blueprints for designing effective ethical climates. Sustainability refers to maintaining practices over long periods of time without damaging the tools used. One survey found that a substantial majority of executives saw sustainability as an important part of future success. Social sustainability practices address the ways that social systems are affected by an organization's actions over time and how changing social systems may affect the organization. Systematic reviews of the research literature show a generally positive relationship between sustainability and financial performance. However, there's often a strong moral and ethical component that shapes organizational culture at which must be given genuine value for the relationship to exist. To create a truly sustainable business, an organization must develop a long-term culture and put its values into practice. In other words, there needs to be a sustainable system for creating sustainability. Like other cultural practices, sustainability needs time and nurturing to grow. The most innovative companies often have unconventional, collaborative, vision-driven cultures. Startup firms often have innovative cultures because they're usually small, agile, and focused on solving problems to survive and grow. The key to continuing innovation is a culture of caring. Organizational culture can provide a positive, ethical environment and foster innovation. Culture can also contribute significantly to an organization's bottom line. One study of nearly 100 automobile dealerships over a 6-year time frame found that a positive culture led to improved performance. Research suggests that culture affects organizational performance through customer satisfaction. Culture can enhance organizational commitment and increase the consistency of employee behavior. Culture is valuable to employees too because it spells out how things are done and what's important. But we shouldn't ignore the potentially dysfunctional aspects of culture, especially a strong one, on an organization's effectiveness. Institutionalized organizations often don't go out of business even if the original goals are no longer relevant. Behaviors and habits go unquestioned. which can stifle innovation and make maintaining the organization's culture an end in itself. Culture is a liability when shared values don't agree with those that further the organization's effectiveness. When an organization's environment is undergoing rapid change, its entrenched culture may no longer be appropriate. Because driver behaviors and unique strengths are likely to diminish as people assimilate, strong cultures can become liabilities when they effectively eliminate the advantages of diversity. In general, we've discussed cultures that cohere around a positive set of values and attitudes. This consensus can create powerful forward momentum. Coherence around negativity and dysfunction can produce downward forces that are powerful yet toxic. An organization's culture doesn't pop out of thin air. Once established, it rarely fades away. An organization's customs, traditions, and general way of doing things are largely due to what it's done before and how successful it was doing it. This leads to the ultimate source of an organization's culture, the founders. Founders have a vision of what the organization should be, and the firm's initial small size makes it easy to impose that vision on all members. Culture creation occurs in three ways. Founders hire and keep only employees who think and feel the same way they do. They may indoctrinate and socialize employees to their way of thinking or feeling, or the founder's own behavior encourages employees to identify with them and internalize their beliefs, values, and assumptions. When the organization succeeds, the founder's personalities become embedded in the culture. The original culture derives from the founder's philosophy and strongly influences hiring criteria. The success of socialization depends on deliberateness of matching new employees' values to those of the organization in the selection process, and on top management's commitment to socialization programs. Top managers' actions set the general climate, and employees sustain and perpetuate the culture. Employees absorb culture in several forms, the most potent being stories, rituals, symbols, and language. Stories circulate through many organizations. They typically include narratives about organization founders, rule breaking, workforce reductions, relocations of employees, reactions to past mistakes, and organizational coping. Rituals are repetitive sequences of activities that express and reinforce the key values of the organization, what goals are most important, and/or which people are important versus expendable. The size of offices, the elegance of furnishings, and perks are a few examples of material symbols, sometimes also known as artifacts. These convey to employees who is important and the kinds of behavior that are appropriate. Many organizations within them use language to help members identify with culture, attest to their acceptance of it, and help preserve it. Unique terms describe equipment, key individuals, customers, or products that relate to the business. New employees may be overwhelmed by acronyms and jargon that once assimilated unite members. The culture of an organization is set by its founders and is often difficult to change afterward. When we think of the development of culture as ongoing and conducted through each employee, we can see ways to increase the ethical, positive, or spiritual aspects of the environment. Despite differences across industries and cultures, ethical organizational cultures share some common values and processes. Therefore, managers can create a more ethical culture by adhering to the following principles. Be a visible role model. Employees will look to the actions of top management as a benchmark for appropriate behavior, but everyone can be a role model to positively influence the ethical atmosphere. Communicate ethical expectations. Whenever you serve in a leadership capacity, minimize ethical ambiguity by sharing a code of ethics that states the organization's primary values and the judgment rules employees must follow. Provide ethical training. Set up seminars, workshops, and training programs to reinforce the organization's standards of conduct, clarify what practices are permissible, and address potential ethical dilemmas. Visibly reward ethical acts and punish unethical ones. Evaluate subordinates on how their decisions compare with the organization's code of ethics. Review the means as well as the ends. Provide protective mechanisms. Seek formal mechanisms so everyone can discuss ethical dilemmas and report unethical behavior without fear of reprimand. When top management emphasizes strong ethical values, supervisors are more likely to practice ethical leadership. Positive attitudes transfer down the line employees, so show higher levels of cooperation and assistance. A positive organizational culture emphasizes building on employee strengths, rewards more than it punishes, and encourages individual vitality and growth. Though many companies have embraced it, we're still learning how and when it works best.